Hey, this is Mr. Barr. Variables on both sides is the topic, so let's do the notes for this one. Variables on both sides. Equations with variables on both sides. Learning goal. I can use one variable equations and inequalities to model and solve real-life problems. Why? Math has its own language and rules. By solving equations, I learn the language of math and how it works. Living, as we do, in a world filled with high-tech gadgets that depend upon modern physics, it is obvious that the lack of a solution to an equation has hardly held the physicists back, or the engineers who take modern physical theory and turn them into products. Without the precise understanding provided by the equations, the world would not have silicone chips, iPhones, MRI medical examinations, or many of the other things we now take for granted. But none of those applications required that those equations be solved in the strict mathematical sense. Remember, we're learning the language of math. It's not really about solving equations. Sometimes there are variables on both sides of the equation. Well, let's get started on our notes. You can start by writing down your name. And today's topic is variables So when I look at this equation, I have 20 minus 4x and you can see there are variables on both sides of the equation. And that's what's new here. And our first goal is to get all of the variables on one side. Now you can move everything to the left side or you can move it to the right side. In this instance, I'm going to move everything over here because if I take this guy and move him over there, I'm going to be left with a 0, and that's going to confuse me. So I'm going to take this and move it over there. Well, how do I move something in math? I use my rainbow poster. I can add to both sides, subtract from both sides. So I want this to come over here. How am I going to do that? I'm going to add 4x to both sides. And what I have is the red marker of death and destruction. (20) equals, ready? I have 1x plus 4x equals 5x. That's today's lesson right there. Today's lesson just occurred. The idea that I can take an x or 4x's from one side and get them onto the other side, or make a negative 4x disappear. What I'm left with now is a one-step equation. I'll divide both sides by 5. I'll use my red marker of death and destruction. And I'm left with x equals 4. I move variables just like I move numbers. I use the rainbow poster. So here you can see me doing it in the notes, adding 4x to both sides, plus 4x, leaving with 20 equals 5x. Remember that x's play with x's, Y's play with Y's. So when I have an equation like this, the x, the 10, and the 2x aren't going to play together. The 2x and 2x's play together. So let's actually do this one together. We'll do this in our notes. So we'll do 4x plus 10 2x minus 6. The first thing I want to do is get all the x's on one side of the equation. Now I can either go minus 2x, or I can go minus 4x. It's your choice. I'm going to choose to do minus 2x because this will be easier. It's easier to do 4 minus 2 than 2 minus 4. It's easier. It keeps things positive. Red marker of death and destruction. Notice that I'm subtracting the x's from the x's. I'm not trying to do 10 minus 2x. I'm doing 4x minus 2x. The x's subtract the x's. Gives me 2x plus 10 equals negative 6. And what I am left with is a two-step equation. This is what we did a couple lessons ago. Today's lesson just occurred right there. That's today's lesson. This is old material. Let's solve it. Subtracting 10 from both sides. Red marker of death and destruction. Dividing both sides by 2. And I feel like that's probably, let's see, how am I doing on my notes here? Subtracting 2x from both sides, subtracting 10 from both sides, and dividing both sides by 2. Okay. I'm good with the notes for today. The rest of this, if you'd like to practice with me, you can. But it is not required for you to write this in your notes. So if we were in class right now, we'd probably be doing this on whiteboards. So I suggest doing it and checking your answers against what I have here. Where am I at? So I'm going to subtract. Let me change my line width and there we go. So I'm going to start by subtracting 3a from both sides, minus 3a. These are gone, and I'm left with 6a plus 5 equals negative 1. This is a two-step equation. Subtracting 5, 6a equals negative 6. Dividing by 6, a equals negative 1. Okay, a little distribution on this one. So I'm going to start right here with the distribution step. Let's see. I could subtract 4p from both sides, or I could subtract 5p from both sides. I'm going to choose this side because it'll keep my numbers positive. Subtracting 10 from both sides. P equals negative 5. Final one. Start with some distribution. 5t plus 10 minus 2 equals 6t minus 9. Now I'm going to combine those two terms. Now that I've simplified down both sides, I'm ready to start moving t's around. I can either subtract 5t or subtract 6t. I'm going to do the 5t because it keeps everything positive. So t equals 17. All right, and that is it for that lesson. All right, hey, thank you for watching.